Greetings from the Alexandrina Council. Let's meet the driving force behind the Alexandrina community. Mayor Keith Parks, Deputy Mayor Councillor Margaret Gardner, West Ward, Councillor Bill Coomans, Councillor Lou Nicholson, Councillor Michael Scott, North Ward, Councillor Craig Maidment, Councillor Sue Miller, Councillor Christy Thornton, South Ward, Councillor Margaret Gardner, Councillor Millie Livingston, and finally, Councillor Peter Oliver.
Good evening. Welcome to our council meeting of the 19th of August 2024. An audio recording of this meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes and will last the length of the open meeting. The audio file will be available on the council website after the draft minutes have been circulated. I'd like to welcome our elected members. We have an apology from Councillor Coomans. We have also with us our Acting Chief Executive Officer, Alan Harvey, General Manager Community, Stacey Batson, General Manager Corporate, Tash Hunt, Acting General Manager Infrastructure, Jonathan Smythe, and several other staff as required. I ask you all to please stand for the recognition of owners and local government prayer. The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Ngarrindjeri, the Paramank and the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. Almighty God, we humbly beseech Thee to grant Thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of this district. Thank you. As far as declarations of interest, if a council member has an interest in a matter which will be before the council at this meeting, they are asked to disclose the interest to the council and provide full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the beginning of the meeting, and members are reminded they must also declare their interest and provide details at the time the relevant item arises for consideration. Councillor Oliver.
I have a general conflict of interest on item 11.2.
Okay, thanks. So with confirmation of our minutes of the council meeting held on the 15th of July 2024 and the special meeting held on the 5th of August 2024, just need to move that they be received as true and correct. Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion relating to those minutes? So I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 2 is adjourned debate. There is none. Item 3 is presentations and deputations. 3.1 is a deputation regarding the Operation Flinders Foundation, and we have Jonathan Robran and Derek Fenton here to present to us on that matter. Welcome. Do you need more than 5 minutes? Sorry?
Yes, thank you.
You do? Okay, so everybody in favour of that? Yep, that's fine. Thanks.
Mayor Parks, thank you for the opportunity, and council members, thank you for the opportunity to share with you the Operation Flinders story briefly this afternoon. If we could show the video to commence with, Tanya, that would be most appreciated.
Sometimes it's difficult to see the way forward, to know which way to turn, but when you're given an opportunity to take a step in a new direction and explore new horizons, you take it. It's an opportunity to test your own limits, to face your fears, to go new places, meet new people, learn new skills, dream new dreams. And at the end of it all, we leave our old selves behind and step into a brighter future. We may not know exactly what's around the corner or down the track, but we'll get there, one step at a time.
We're out here today in Divide at a Palmer Conserved property, teaching a group of...
Thank you. As you saw from the video, the Operation Flinders program at its core is based in the Northern Flinders Ranges, in that spectacular part of the state where we work with young people who are referred through to our program through various schools and agencies to participate in an 8-day exercise in the Northern Flinders Ranges. The young people are referred to us and they have challenges and might have difficult backgrounds and challenges in their home lives for all sorts of reasons. And the Operation Flinders program takes the young people away from their environments up to the Northern Flinders Ranges and gives them an opportunity to grow as young people, to learn and understand what they're truly capable of through a number of different challenges and activities that they undertake over the 8 days. Our program's been running since 1991, over 33 years. And on our most recent program in June, we had our 10,000th young person participate since our commencement back in 1991. So that's a really, really significant milestone and something we're extremely proud of in terms of that overall number. The footage you saw there, that's called our field exercises. So we run 5 field exercises or 5 programs each year. On each one of our programs, we'll have around 70 to 80 young people participating who are referred from schools and agencies literally all around the state. The young people are aged between the age of 14 and 18 years. Male accounts for about 60% of referrals, female about 40%, and young people of an Aboriginal background are around 18%. And it's the schools and the agencies who do the referrals of the young people. Operation Flinders doesn't get involved in that side of things. We accept the nominations from the schools and the agencies when they commence the program with us. They're referred from literally all around the state, from again schools and agencies in metropolitan, regional and remote areas of the state, including some representation down here in the Alexandrina Council region. We've had the Goolwa Secondary College involved in recent years. The Mount Compass Area School have had teams participate, and Eastern Fleurieu School up in Strath have also had teams participate in recent years as well. So we have a pretty strong connection with the local schools here in the Alexandrina Council region. The program is 8 days. The young people walk about 70 to 80 kilometres over 8 days. There's a number of activities and challenges the young people participate in during that time. There's an abseiling activity, there's a high ropes facility, and there's also an evening of cultural experience with the local Adnyamatna community members who are the traditional owners of the Northern Flinders Ranges, and that's a fantastic part of the program. So these activities and challenge that we provide the young people are designed to build confidence and leadership and challenge the young people to make them realise they are capable of achieving perhaps so much more than they initially thought. Over the 8 days we see the behavioural patterns of the storming, norming and performing. You've probably heard of that term, where the young people initially are resistant to the activities. They might be finding it difficult out in the field, and over the course of the 8 days they grow and they develop and they build confidence and they have an understanding of what's required to achieve the daily goals out there as a team. Often on day 8, a lot of the young people don't want to go home because they've had such a positive experience involved in the program, and they've learnt so much, and sometimes they go back to difficult environments they may not necessarily want to go back to. Through completion of the 8-day program, young people receive SACE recognition, so they receive 20 Stage 1 SACE credits. So there's an educational outcome as well as some personal development outcomes through their involvement in the program. And those outcomes that we see for the young people are many and varied, but we see the building of the self-confidence over the 8 days, where they think they initially can't do it, And over the 8 days, they think, well, yes, I can achieve difficult things through participation in the program. They learn the concept of goal setting and breaking down smaller or larger tasks into smaller, more achievable goals each day. They learn the value of teamwork. They learn accept responsibility for their actions. The young people develop leadership skills. They're led by positive role models. And really importantly, we provide a number of follow-up activities to the young people as well. So it's not just the 8 days in the Flinders Ranges. There's a number of follow-up activities which include the Duke of Edinburgh Award, a Certificate 2 in Outdoor Recreation, some employment opportunities through some barista training courses that we run, and a number of other training activities and weekends that we facilitate post the 8 days in the Flinders Range as well, which is very, very important. I'll just touch on one young person from the Mount Compass Area School who went through our program 3 years ago, a young lady from a very, very troubled and difficult background. Through her involvement in Operation Flinders, she completed the 8-day trek. She then went on to complete her Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award, receiving recognition at Government House. She completed a Certificate 2 in Outdoor Recreation that we facilitate after the program as well. She completed a barista training course, coffee making, which we do often during the course of the year. She's spoken at numerous Operation Flinders events. She's helped out at fundraising events. She participated in many training weekends. She's gone back 3 times as a peer group mentor. So she's returned to the Flinders Range and supported other teams on 3 occasions doing the 8-day trek. And last year she walked the Kokoda track as well through some funding we received from a donor to facilitate a Kokoda track experience for 8 young people. So our program does have the capacity to create change, to create a positive outcome for the young people, to create long-lasting effects for their involvement in the program as well. So given the fact there's support and involvement with local teams here in the Alexandrina Council region, one of the reasons we're here tonight is to seek support from Council if there's grant opportunities or funding opportunities that can be provided to Operation Flinders to help us fund the costs for local teams' involvement. We'd be very open to hearing that discussion or post this meeting as well. So that's all I'd like to present at the moment, but I do have Derek Fenton, who's a fantastic long-term volunteer and a local resident here in the Alexandrina Council, and Derek will share his experience on the program as well.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you. I started volunteering with Operation Flinders back in 1997. Since then, I've spent perhaps 1,000 days or more up in the Flinders Ranges working with these young people. It is really, really effective. I keep doing it because I love watching young people grow, and I love being part of that growth. It gives me purpose in life. A couple of months back, I was volunteering at a Next Step program weekend, which is follow-up weekend for the young people at Clayton Bay. One of the other volunteers there was a lady called Amy McKenzie, who works at Goolwa Secondary School. She gets teams together to go up to Operation Flinders. Now, it takes an awful lot of work to get 10 young people of this cohort, if you like, with all their paperwork together up to the Flinders Ranges. It takes a dedicated person to do that. It's all in their own time that it happens. Now, she then said, on top of that, I've got to find $6,000 to cover the costs of buses, boots, and school replacement teachers. And that's a huge amount of work. So I thought that the young people that come back with their increased connectivity, their increased resilience, their increased sense of purpose, they don't just benefit themselves, they benefit the community they come back to. And they're the future of this community, of this council area. So I thought that perhaps council might like to invest in that and help schools get kids up there, because it does take a very dedicated person. Sometimes schools drop off because that dedicated person isn't there. They've moved to another school and the school can't do it anymore because they can't find somebody to do all that extra work to get the teams up there. So I would say, please support this. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek and Jonathan. Any questions? All I can say is, from the Goolwa Secondary College perspective, I'm on the school council, and I know the children got an immense amount of value out of it. It was fantastic, and we'd like to do more of them. So it's great, and thanks for coming to see us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So 3.2 is a proposal for planting at the Ratalang Basham Beach Conservation Reserve. We have Annie Basham with us to make a presentation, so welcome, Annie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I request permission? Is that better? Oh, right, thank you. Could I request 10 minutes, please, from the council?
Were you happy to go back? Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Parks, Alexandrina Mayor, councillors, staff, gallery, and my thanks to Maureen Hatch for coming tonight as well. Photo 1 is page 459 of your agenda. The land was never ever acquired from the Basham family. It was acquired from A.W. Booth, and you've had 48 years to get this information correct. So please, this is the correct record, that the Ratalang Basham Beach Reserve was never acquired from the Basham family. Photo 2, please. This is an April 1838 sketch of Encounter Bay, and you'll notice there no trees till north of the railway line. And in 1856, my great-grandfather stated that there were almost no trees and only sparse scrub on the farm when he took it over. The plantations that are there now are historically inaccurate. The Rust PPK Plan 1995 stressed the importance of tourism, retain open farming landscape, ensure retention of views to the coast from the cycle track, from the cockle train and from the main road. The committee minutes of the 8th of August 24 state, when planting trees at the caravan park, be mindful not to restrict views to the ocean. That same committee is going to remove unique scenic vistas to the sea by planting up to 10-metre tall trees on the reserve. And that is the only part of the coast where you actually get the views down to the Coorong. It's called native grasslands. It includes shrubs in the zones, and the shrubs are actually 10-metre tall trees. The blackened area in the top left-hand corner is the steam ranger fire of the 30th of December 2020, which went right round Buckland Community Homestead and nearly reached the main road. Wallaby grass, 90 centimetres tall, not 30, flowers in summer, is not considered a fire hazard by the committee. Red leg grass, 1 metre tall, flowers December to April, not considered a fire hazard by the committee. Windmill grass, 50 centimetres tall, flowers in spring and summer, not considered a fire hazard by the committee, and is also resistant to glyphosate. These up to 1 metre tall grasses will surround the Pleasant Banks homestead on 3 sides, and clumps of trees will be planted in the corners of this paddock and scattered through the grasses to remove the panoramic views from Basham Beach Road and the Cockle Train. From your agenda in September last year, area on the high point with limited views to the sea. Limited views to the sea. This is what the committee calls limited views to the sea. some of the best views in the area, loved by millions of tourists. You can see Basham Beach, Middleton Beach, Goolwa Beach, the Murray Mouth, right down to the Coorong, and you can only see that where the reserve is. Any plants over 1 metre tall will remove the views. These bales are 1.4 metres tall, and the trees 10 metres tall are planned to be planted on this spot. These are more of the 1.4 metre bales of hay, and they are planning to plant 10 metre tall trees here. This is one of the 10 metre tall trees at the wetland, which already obliterates the view of the coast. Wheatgrass, 1.2 metres tall, to be planted on the high point. These bales are also 1.4 metres tall. You've approved native grasslands, but in Zone 4 here they're going to plant endemic shrubs. Flora SA says that the swamp wattle to be planted there grows 10 metres tall. Kangaroo grass is going to be grown on Zone 5, grows to 1.5 metres tall. Flowers December to February, and the Australian National Herbarium states 2/3 of the seeds harvested will be infertile. The wetland trees and the Port Elliot trees near the caravan park are all taller than the train. No views to the Cockle train clients. This crop was eaten out by the rabbits in 2023 in Zone 3. This rye crop is actually north of the railway line in rabbit-controlled private property. Was planted on the 21st of May. Next photo shows the same crop next to the illegal plantation rabbit warren, next to the Basham Beach Road car park, which has been destroyed by the rabbits. At the August meeting of the committee, they actually stated that the rabbits will impact any native grasses. Wallaby grass flowers in bushfire season. It's not considered a fire hazard by the committee. 20+ reports in your minutes and agendas have stated that Council would provide fire breaks and slashing in the 7.5 hectares. Council did not provide any slashing of fire breaks during summer from the 1st of January when they took over the land. Not along Basham Beach Road, not along the steam train railway corridor, and particularly not around Pleasant Banks Homestead, as was promised. The grasses will not be slashed at any time of the year, was stated by committee members at the Seeding Natives information session on the 11th of December 2023 in this room. And all of that completely ignores the master plan, page 19, which says, be mindful of the potential fire risk to Pleasant Banks. I want to say thank you to Maureen Hatch for her support from 1995 in our attempts to get the committee to understand the importance of bushfire threats, and they still don't understand the threats. All those bushfire marks are the 1959 fire, which went right down to Horseshoe Bay, up to the tennis courts, to the showgrounds, to Waterport Road, to Basham Beach, to Pleasant Banks Basham Beach Road, to the railway line crossing on Basham Beach Road, to Mindacowie, to Attrell Store, and then across to Betches and across to Goolwa. The CFS buffer zones in the regional park are being surreptitiously planted out to guarantee a contiguous burnout of the entire reserve, endangering everybody who lives nearby. Farming of the 7.5 hectares provides an automatic bushfire buffer zone to protect Middleton residents. Farming should be returned until the renewal of the master plan and consultation with the general public has been carried out. Spectacular, unique, scenic vistas will be removed. Yep, I've got one more photo. Okay, thank you. Will be removed from the millions of tourists because the native grasslands include shrubs which are actually 10-metre tall trees, and will remove the views. Can we have the next view, please? Will remove the views from millions of tourists from Basham Beach, Middleton Beach, Goolwa Beach, the Murray Mouth, and you can see past the Murray Mouth there down to the Coorong. And that view will be taken from the millions of tourists who are so important to our area on land which had almost no trees and only sparse scrub in 1838 and 1856. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Annie. Any questions? Discussion? No? So thanks very much again for your time and presenting to us and the information. Thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
Item 4 is petitions. There are none. Item 5 is questions with notice. 5.1 is a question from Councillor Miller regarding shared services and or aggregation of service with other neighbouring Fleurieu councils. 5.2 is a question from Councillor Miller regarding the Adelaide Rally and impact on local businesses. And the answers to those questions and the questions are in the agenda. Item 6 is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? No questions without notice? Well, I was about to move on. So, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just interested to know when we can expect to see the Lot 10 business case body of work come to Council, please.
Through the Chair, Council's Manager Strategic Development and I met with Catholic Education Association on Thursday of last week with Council's consultants, TSA, that are undertaking the business case, just to learn a little bit more about the facilities that would be provided at the new Strathalbyn School and a timeline. That was really helpful for us. We are in the process of doing a council member portal update to provide a little bit more information, but I have asked James from TSA Consulting to provide a definitive date on when we can expect to receive that, so we'll provide that as part of the council member portal update.
Any further questions without notice? No, thank you. So notice of item 7 is notice of motion. 7.1 is a motion from Councillor Nicholson regarding the neutralising recent strategic land acquisitions. It's moved by you. Do you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Your Worship. I put this motion tonight for the Chamber to consider recent acquisitions made since elected, and I think with the current financial status of Council, it is really worth discussing and reconsidering these purchases, and perhaps looking at some information to consider whether it is in the community's best interest to keep and develop these properties, or whether these two properties would be worth letting go. it's sort of simply asking for some information for us to consider, and I think that's really worthwhile. Thank you.
So, do we have a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Any further discussion? Councillor Maiden.
Realistically, do we need another report? These are only recent purchases. This could be just a bit too premature. They were identified at the time to future-proof development in not only the Strathalbyn town centre, because it is a town centre property, but also the Goolwa property, which adjoins this building. So I think it's too soon to ask staff to rush out and identify potential uses for the property. I think they've got plenty to do at the moment. We're not that desperate to recover or to dispose of them, and they are, in my mind, they are critical to future development of not only the Goolwa township, the main street, but also the Strathalbyn township.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I think I concur with what Councillor Maidment has said, but I do note that in the 15th of July council meeting agenda, the former CEO advised that to enable limited funding to be extended further, councils can partner with the private sector to achieve outcomes for the community. In the 2024-25 budget, funding was allocated to seek assistance to move in this space. So I think that work is already underway. I'm not sure what that update means, but I gathered from the former CEO that he had been exploring some options to activate those two spaces. So I agree, I don't think this report is necessary.
Sorry, any further discussion on it? So, you didn't think, Councillor, or you'll close the debate, just a second. Nothing we need to say? No. So, go ahead, you're right of reply. Yeah.
Thank you. I actually disagree. To use the word desperate, I think that we are in a position where we're desperate to relieve council of some debt. We have some very difficult financial decisions to make. These two recently acquired properties, yes, they are strategic, yes, they deserve development, but do our ratepayers need to develop these properties? Does council need to be involved? Is the private market better suited in this climate and in council's financial position to develop these properties and be a part of the strategic development of these towns? I really think we've had some really hard discussions in this chamber. We are in a difficult financial position. We've put pressure on our administration to cut costs, and we need to, at some stage, make some really hard decisions. I really think that these two properties are ripe for further discussion, to have more information, to have some hard discussion and make some of these hard decisions to relieve our financial pressure. Thank you.
End of the discussion, so I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That is lost. So 7.2 is a motion from Councillor Nicholson regarding maximising community benefits, transforming land at Kyneton into a more valuable asset. It's moved by you. Do you wish to speak to that? Yeah.
Thank you, Worship. Much like the cost of living, the cost of council has gone up significantly. This year, with the return of large increases in our first round of asset revaluations, council is facing additional financial pressure. Maintenance of community assets such as roads, footpaths, buildings and toilets is difficult, let alone upgrades or new initiatives that our community continue to drive for. Earlier this year, I had to advise residents in Kyneton that I could not support inclusion of $20,000 in the upcoming budget to change the classification of road reserves to community land, that we had to be frugal. Our ongoing financial sustainability and forecast rate increases suggest that it will be very difficult to invest in community projects or new assets in the coming years without increasing the rates even more than projected. This highly valued reserve in Kyneton offers open space, greening and recreation opportunities for the local residents. It's a Class C reserve. It goes all the way from Albatross Avenue through to Seagull Avenue. It contains a small playground and a small memorial in the northwest corner. It was suggested to me, Your Worship, that the reserve be resized, upgraded, and other community projects be invested in by a member of the local community. I think that's a really worthwhile discussion. Examples of some community projects include but are not limited to upgrading the playground in the reserve and the reserve itself to reflect the values of the surrounding properties, applying to change the classification of the road reserves at the end of 3rd and 4th Avenues to community land. Other things come from village conversations, such as and sort of community groups and community-led initiatives, such as building a Port Elliot tennis club room, upgrades to the Oval, including female change rooms in Port Elliot, upgrading the local dog park. We know that disposal of community land is most often highly opposed. Long-term loss is not supported for short-term gain, and I fully appreciate this view. So why is this motion worth discussing? I wouldn't move it if it was the whole reserve. I wouldn't move it if the gains were short-term. An opportunity to transform a portion of the reserve into other valued long-term outcomes for the community is worth discussing. In order to do this, we need information. How much of the reserve would be portioned off? Options would be in the report. How big would the block sizes be? This would be in the report. How would the reserve be divided? Options would be presented in the report. What assurance is there for the community that the funds would come back to them? This would be in the report. How will community projects be identified? This would need to be in the report. There is no shortage of initiatives from our local resident groups through the village conversations, and coming up we have the Recreation and Open Spaces strategy. An opportunity to fund projects is rare, so I put this motion to discuss an opportunity for the community of Kyneton. Thank you.
So, do we have a seconder for that? No seconder? Right, so that will lapse through want of a seconder. Item 8 is administration reports. 8.1 is the grants and contribution programs 2023-24, the end of year report. There's a recommendation with 3 dot points, and dot point 2 there's appointed a member to the Climate Emergency and Environment Committee to be appointed to the Environment Grant, and there's a recommendation that Councillor Nicholson or Councillor Livingston be one of those people based on the background. But so I guess first we need to establish whether, number one, whether Councillor Nicholson or Councillor Livingston would like to be nominated to that position, or whether anybody else would. Councillor Oliver.
I just wondered, do I need to declare a conflict of interest because under dot point 3 I'm listed?
Yeah,
so that would be a material conflict of interest. Will we be considering these separately, or should I leave now?
All together. We're doing them all together.
Okay, well, I'll leave now. Okay.
So just need to shut that door. Thanks, David. So we have Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Livingston recommended. Firstly, does anybody else wish to be considered? No? So Councillor Nicholson or Councillor Livingston, do either of you wish to take that role? Councillor Livingston, you?
I'm happy to be appointed.
Yeah. Councillor Nicholson, happy with that? So there's no need to have an election for that. Thank you. So then now we have the recommendation there with the 3 dot points with Councillor Livingston in dot point 2. So do we have a mover for that recommendation? Moved Councillor Gardner. Seconded Councillor Maidment. Councillor Livingston.
Sorry, just to clarify, do I now need to declare a conflict and leave?
You probably do. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. And now, is there any discussion? Councillor Miller.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for this summary report. There's so much good information in this, so many good stories, and or good news stories, and I really hope our community takes the time to read it. And I just wanted to say thank you for the report. It's really good.
Any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. If we could get those two councillors back. Okay, 8.2 is the restoration of natural burial ground proposal for the old Goolwa Cemetery and the consultation outcomes, and there's a recommendation there with two components. Is there a mover for that move, Councillor Miller? You wish to talk to it? Yeah.
I just wanted to thank everybody who responded. There was some really good commentary in this, and I think that our community they're definitely seeking something like this. And thank you for this report and for bringing this initiative forward. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Maidment.
Yeah, I totally concur with Councillor Miller on this one. It's a great initiative. I still will be pushing for a similar site to be identified north of the Flinders, closer to my hometown, because I think I could avail myself of this option later on down the track, not too soon hopefully, but yeah, I'd like to be interred in a place closer to home, so I'll still keep pushing that barrow.
Is there any further discussion? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8. One and two. You did that to do them together. Did them together. Yeah. Yeah. Just make sure everybody was understood we're doing recommendation 1 and 2 together. No, you're not sure?
I moved 1. That's what I thought I was. Recommendation 1 was what I thought I moved.
So, well, do you want to go back and start again? I mean, so council. So let's start with. So I think in future, if you're going to move 1, can you just say I'm moving 1 only, so that we don't get this problem? So you're moving recommendation 1 only, that we receive and note it. So Councillor Maidment, you happy to second that we receive and note it? So let's go back and say, is there any discussion on receiving and noting it? No? So I'll put receiving and noting it to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Now we can go back to recommendation part 2, which contains the 2 components. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. Seconded, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion relating to that? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again, that's carried unanimously. That was a bit of a waste of time. We ended up with the same result. 8.3 is a review of speed limits within the Strathalbyn town centre, and there's a recommendation that we note and receive the report and continue on. I think there's a necessity to look at speed limits throughout Alexandrina, not just Strathalbyn. I happen to live on an intersection which, if nobody gets killed in the next year, it'll be amazing, and nobody's been killed there so far. We've got a 100-kilometre speed zone with 5 intersections coming into it, and B doubles and semi-trailers coming out of 3 of the roads. And that's just one example that I've discussed with SAPOL myself, and they agree, but Department of Transport bury their head in the sand. I know there's lots of other things like this. I'd love us to prepare a report to the Department of Transport on Alexandrina's roads and what review of speed limits needs to be undertaken. But I'll leave it up to whoever moves it to talk to that. Move, Councillor Maidman.
Great report. I called for this report some time ago, and I think, and I take everything on board that the Mayor has said. This is really a test case for the department. As you see in the report, they are not particularly interested in reducing the speed on their own roads, the Department of Transport roads. And as you all know, the main road through Strathalbyn, South Terrace, Santa Grove Road, Kellington Road is a department road. Also East Terrace past two schools. And this is why I asked for a review of the speed limits. And as it comes back, lo and behold, the Department of Transport won't reduce the speed limits on their roads, but they will allow the speed reduction from 50 to 40 to occur within the terraces, which is bounded by West, South and North Parade and East Terrace. So that's within the older part of town where there are narrow streets. And having conducted business in Dawson Street for 40 odd years, I've seen lots of speeding down the main shopping precinct with our demographic, people on gophers, disabled people trying to negotiate the shopping precinct. I think it's a great move to reduce the speed limit down to 40. Also, with more and more development happening on the western side of town, there is going to be some choke points leading onto North Parade, which is a very narrow street, but it's the main road out of town, and therefore that we do need to consider those sorts of things in the long term. Stress growing, and I think, although disappointed that the department won't reduce the speed past the schools, I think we can keep pushing them in time. This will be a win for the town.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Gardner? Any discussion? Councillor Scott?
Yes, I fully support the reduction of speed limit in those tight inner suburban areas to 40. As I've mentioned before in this chamber, I've had a bit of experience with it in the Adelaide Council. It's, I believe, the only council in Adelaide that's doing it, and it makes a huge difference. I wish that all suburbs were that speed. Some of the little streets in Strathalbyn, Taylor's Lane and Melville Lane, I think it is, they would benefit greatly from 40. So I strongly support it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.4 is recreational vehicle RV park scoping study, and there's a recommendation there with 5 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Move, Councillor Oliver.
In moving there, I just wonder, could I please make a very small alteration to one of the locations, 3D? That'll be changed from Bristow Smith Reserve to further around where there's no houses. I'm not sure the exact name of the area.
I know where you mean. You mean the area of land adjacent to what's now called Down South Marina, which was called whatever it was called anyway,
yes.
the Marina.
Yes.
And which has got the reserve where the PS Federal is parked for B&B.
Yes, please.
Yeah. 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 So it's the reserve adjacent to the PS Federal that describes it. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Gardner, you've got a seconder?
Your Worship, I think Councillor Oliver's suggestion is a good one, but also De Castro Square, I'm sort of staggered that we would even consider that one, and I will not vote positively if that's left in there. Sorry.
Happy to delete it.
Move it out. I'll take that one out. Councillor Gardner seconded it, yeah. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I have 6 questions before I speak. I'm just curious why there is no mention that the CMCA has been seeking a suitable site to establish an RV park in Alexandrina Council, specifically Strathalbyn, since 2019. My second question is, why does the report only speak to possible costs to council in terms of infrastructure and operational costs, whilst not mentioning that a third party is willing to invest in such a venture in at least one township in Strathalbyn? Why would there be no fee to stay when there is a cost to the landowner to maintain the service and site? Why has this site in Parker Avenue not ever been mentioned to CMCA in the past 5 years since they have been looking for a site in Strathalbyn? Why then have CMCA not asked for some input, since they have significant experience in establishing and operating this style of parks across Australia? And I won't be supporting, why is there no mention of the Lot 10 site at all? And then I'll speak once I've had some responses.
Yep, through the chair, if you wouldn't mind, one question at a time, then I'll respond to those for you.
Okay, my first question was, why is there no mention that CMCA have been seeking a suitable site to establish an RV park in Alexandrina Council, in specifically Strathalbyn, since 2019?
Through the chair, we're not aware of that approach from that organisation, so if that documentation does exist, then we would be happy to receive it, but we'll also make contact with them anyway with regards to Langhorne Creek, so we'll cover those 2 things off at the same time.
I'll put my questions on notice, I think. I note there is no mention in here that facilities do not need to be provided if CMCA were to be operating this site. And there's no mention of how self-containment would be monitored and enforced, because not all RVs are self-contained, and in particular they need to have their own toilet and retain all wastewater. If council develops its own RV park in Strathalbyn, what does that mean for something like this at Lot 10, which we've been spending 18 months and a lot of money investigating a business plan, of which CMCA are a major stakeholder? And they submitted an expression of interest in 2019. They visited sites in 2019. And it's my understanding that CMCA, despite the back and forth over Lot 10, have remained engaged and are likely interested in other proposed locations. They've been seeking to engage with council for 5 years, but now council is looking to do this in a different location and not talk to them. They have the same business development manager who submitted the EOI in 2019 and undertook a site visit, and has remained engaged with the Lot 10 process, despite incredible frustration our communities experience. The caravan park in Strathalbyn is constrained.
So now you're starting to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I am speaking.
You're not answering a question?
No, I said I'd put them on notice.
Right, okay.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. They cannot really grow any further there. This Parker Avenue site will not meet the demand that there is in Strathalbyn and surrounds. We know that CMCA is willing to invest its own funds into the infrastructure within the RV park limits. All they need is reticulated service connection to the boundary for water, sewer and power. They'd undertake construction of barbecue shelters, a site for the park custodian with a slab, water, power, sullage inlet, park dump point. They do signage, internal driveways, water points around the park, landscaping, fencing and storage at their own cost. Not council. Council wouldn't have to do this. They could establish an RV park in Strathalbyn within 3 months once they had planning consent. And that is why I'm curious as to why we don't have the TSA business plan for Lot 10. We need the Strathalbyn Town Plan updated, and we need a recreation, open space and sports strategy. So I like the idea of this, and I'm pleased that the report's come back, but there's so much missing from this that I won't be supporting this scoping study unless it includes Lot 10 and there's direct engagement and consideration of the CMCA expression of interest that is being consulted with through the Lot 10 business plan. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maidman. Yeah,
I'm aware of the CMCA interest in Strathalbyn. It goes back prior to 2019, so and it was going to be at Lot 10. Always interested in going out to Lot 10. I could not agree with the Parker Avenue site being for 2 or 3 nights camping. You've got so many adjacent residences to that site. You're going to have a lot of pushback on that. Originally, the Parker Avenue site was for RVs to park to go to do shopping, for farmers who pull up with their trucks and people with their trailers who were taking stock to market or whatever, to be able to have a long bay parking. And it was only it was all part of the Strathalbyn streetscape original plan. Obviously, the money to install that infrastructure wasn't there at the time because of various reasons. Don't need to go down that rabbit hole. So I won't agree to people camping behind the Vic Centre adjacent to houses, and obviously there's a train station as well, and people coming through there. It would be not a very good site for 2 or 3 nights camping, but by all means, going forward, develop that site for what it was first intended, and that was for long bay parking for trucks, for people that are pulling into town and want to go to the shops with a caravan attached.
Is any further discussion? Councillor Miller, you've already spoken to it. A question?
Sorry, my other question was, in its vein to Councillor Maidman, is the RV parking is very different to an RV park. So I'm just not sure if we've made that distinction clearly enough here, because that's what I thought Parker Avenue was for as well.
Any further discussion? Councillor Livingston.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify in relation to the Barrage Road Reserve that that parcel of land, just from what I can see, I can't identify that the land adjacent to where the PS Federal was is 120A, and I'm just uncomfortable not knowing that, that's all. Or is that in the report?
I can't tell you the lot number, I just know where it is.
May I ask a question?
Yep.
Is it possible to describe it as that then, instead of putting a lot number on it? That would be good. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
Just a question or some clarification, and I may be ignorant of the subject. My understanding was an RV park was like what we have at Frank Potts Reserve, where people can pull in, stay for no more than 72 hours and move on. But something with the run by the CMCA, I take it there'll be a fee for for staying in that sort of a thing that they're running, which is, it puts a, is that right, or I just need clarification, because that's a different thing from an RV park. That's a pay-as-you-go caravan park.
Through the chair, the report's very clear on that it's about an RV park, not RV parking. So it is about the possibility of people staying overnight in any one location. The CMCA is referenced in this report as they provide criteria around what makes a good location in terms of its connectivity to town centres and other facilities. We've not discussed with them at all the possibility of running any of these sites, so that's clear. But what is in the report is the possibility of charging for those stays in terms of raising revenue to help maintain those sites, because some of those will require a higher level of maintenance than they do at the moment.
Any further discussion? No? Before you have your... So I'll just clarify. As far as Potts Reserve has got a composting toilet, otherwise it's an RV park. RV parks, when you look into it and read about them all, the vehicles and the vehicles that park there have got to be self-contained. Most of them don't supply any water, certainly no sewage and no power, because they're only short-term stay, and the minute you start to put all the other facilities in, you've got people camping, and then you start to get problems. The Barrage Road Reserve, just so that a bit of history, and Councillor Oliver's done it, that going back into the times of Indigenous people living here and the only ones that were being here, and visitors that came to the area, that land was called the Stranger's Land. That's in Narrandjeri history. It's the Stranger's Land. So it's the ideal site to discuss with Narrandjeri the possibility again of using it for visitors. It's where visitors could come, nomadic tribes could come, stay there without fear of being attacked or anything else, as long as they obeyed the rules and stayed there, and then they could move on. So I know we have talked about this quite a few years ago, a lot of years ago, and we did talk to Narrandjeri informally about it, and they weren't all that sure. However, we now find that Narrandjeri people the elders are more progressive and looking at opportunities and things, and the money. The money from, I think, Langwarn Creek, the money from the small amount of money people pay to park in these RV parks like this is a very small token donation, and it goes usually to a community group that collect the money and monitor it, and Langwarn Creek does that, and they put it back into things in the community. So if you did one in Goolwa or wherever, it's great for a community group to take responsibility of monitoring it, getting the money and looking after it, keeping it tidy. And yeah, they're a great thing, and they're very good for the towns as far as bringing people. So, Councillor Oliver, do you wish to provide a reply?
No, the only thing, Mayor, thank you for that summary of the Indigenous arrangements. I just wonder whether 3A Strathalbyn, the site, needs to be changed, whether perhaps, in light of what Councillor Maidment said, whether we need, and Councillor Miller, whether we need to change it to Lot 10.
Probably a bit late now, hasn't it? Yeah, too late. So I'll put the recommendation as modified. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. So 8.5.
Can I have a division, please, Your Worship?
Beg your pardon? Can you please help me? And if you're going to call a division, call it immediately. Don't wait until I'm about to start the next item. It makes my job a lot harder than it is already. So Councillor Miller is going to call a division. Just remind elected members a division is a new vote. I'll ask all those voting in the affirmative to please stand. Councillor Oliver, Councillor Scott, Councillor Livingston, Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Gardner. Thank you. Would those voting in the negative please stand? Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Miller and Councillor Maidment. It is lost. Carried, sorry.
Apologies, Your Worship, I've stood in the affirmative.
8.5 is the 9 Mile Road Share Pathway Scoping Study, and there's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Miller, you're moving that?
I'll move point 1, that we receive and note the report, Your Worship.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion on receiving the report? Councillor Miller, you speak to it, but you know, that'd be not going to speak to it? Okay. So is there any discussion? So I'll put that we note and receive it to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. We move to dot point 2 and 3. Is there a mover for dot point 2 and 3?
I'll move it. I'll move it.
Is there a seconder for 2 and 3? Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion on 2 and 3? Councillor Maidment.
This is a very difficult situation, trying to connect Fleurieu to Strathalbyn, particularly through that area where there's been 2 fatal accidents. There is a need for a shared path connecting the two areas of Strathalbyn, and but this is putting the cart before the horse. It's a great report in terms of giving us lots of options. And as is stated here, the best option is to connect through Cobb & Co over private land and out to Hamburg Road, and then from there it's a lot easier to construct and much cheaper to construct a shared pathway. Problem being the private land. Now this is where I've been pushing for the Strathalbyn town plan, because where is Strathalbyn going to grow? It's probably going to grow in that area. And if we are negotiating with developers of that site, we're going to be able to negotiate a shared path through private property. And if we don't get going on that town plan, we're going to miss that opportunity, because it's the particular parcel of land's been sold not that long ago. I can't recall the exact time. With the owners investing in that area, anticipating growth of the township in that way. So we'll get our connectivity. It is much needed, but I won't be supporting that at this time.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller, you'll close the Oh no, you won't. Yep, you're up. Go.
Thank you, Worship. I agree with everything Councillor Maidment's just said. I do appreciate this body of work being done. And unfortunately, this is going to be a casualty of our budget deficit, and probably for a few years to come yet. The speed and volume of traffic suggests this is very much needed. I look forward to our strategic plan review and some serious conversations with every sector of our community about what we prioritise. This is a perfect example of growing pains, and I hope in future, given the growth that is coming our way, that we ensure future developments are planned in such a way that ensure connection and walkability between our new and existing communities. And Fleurieu probably was ahead of its time, and there wasn't that much thought given to connecting it. But we now we know the value of walking trails and paths and connectivity in our townships, and the topography is working against this, but I really do hope this Strathalbyn Town Plan update and review happens as soon as possible, and because these are things that are very, very important to our community, and they need to be a planned approach. Even if it's a couple of years, we need to know that this is something that will be addressed. Thank you. But I won't be supporting this either.
So any further discussion? No. So I'll put recommendation 2 and 3 to you. All those in favour? You're not in favour of it, even though you moved it, Councillor Scott? No.
I believe I seconded it.
No, you moved it. Councillor Nicholson seconded it. So that all those, I'll ask again, all those in favour?
Apologies.
Against? It's lost. We move on to 8.6, which is road name changes, Goolwa and Hindmarsh Island, and there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Oliver. Is there a seconder? Councillor Gardner. Any discussion relating to that? Councillor Livingston.
Quick question, might be tedious, but don't we already have a Kestrel court in Goolwa? Or would that be? Yeah.
Councillor Scott, are you running the meeting? No, well, thank you.
Through the chair, I'd have to take that on notice. It was a late change, Kestrel Court. The previous name that was suggested for the air park was Pits, and the future occupants didn't want to be living in the pits, so they wanted to change to another airplane, but you could be correct, so I think we need to take that on notice.
The Kestrel Court off Barrage Road?
There is one.
The Kestrel Court off Barrage Road, yeah. This is called Miles Kestrel Road, and it is out in the airport, so maybe it's a bit like having a Kestrel Court in Mount Compass, really. I mean, it's different. It's similar, anyway, it's up to you.
Through the chair, it wouldn't be a public road. It is only naming a private driveway, but it does make it easier for emergency services, albeit that you'd prefer not to have the name repeated within a township or the surrounds.
Councillor Livingston, yeah.
I would like to propose an amendment then, or if that's okay, to subject to the mover and the seconder to remove Kestrel Court for that reason, because if emergency services do pick that up and go to the wrong place, and
Your Worship, this is at the airport, so I imagine that it will be Kestrel Court, the Goolwa Airport. I can't see any problem at all them maintaining the name Kestrel Court at the Goolwa Airport. So no, I'm happy with Kestrel Court.
So we'll leave it in there. So I think the main concern to me seems to be a risk of confusion when you get an emergency and somebody says Kestrel Court Goolwa, and off it goes, and then the CFS or ambulance don't know which one to go to. That can happen. So, Councillor Scott.
Can I just endorse what you've said? We used to have considerable trouble with Ocean Road, and knowing where Ocean Road was, and they are, several kilometres apart. So it is a valid comment.
Any Councillor Maidment?
Yes, I don't recall these names going through the road naming committee, which is the Heritage Advisory Committee, and I'm sure we would have picked that up at that particular time. So this has circumvented that process, and I can see a conflict if there is another Kestrel Court in Goolwa. I'm not aware that there is, and it would be confusing if you're in distress and calling out where you are. At the airport might get missed. So I'd like to see it come out and move on with the job, and that they can come back with another name, go through the process.
Any further discussion? If not, I will put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That is lost. Let's bring it back. 8.7 is the Middleton floods update, the Terrace stormwater, and there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move this motion. We have known for some time that the Middleton flood that occurred would result in some mitigation strategies, and we've been through nearly 2 years, coming up to 2 years of that process. What is a real shame is that this didn't get into our budget, but we have known it's coming, and we can now see the cost of some of the initiatives that our community expect their council to go ahead with. So I move this motion. I know it's difficult to add these numbers to our budget, but I hope we will give it some consideration. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder for that? Yeah, Scott. Councillor Maidman.
Question, how long will this, will it take to have this concept design and cost estimates to come back to us? Because I thought we already had some sort of estimates at one stage and it was in the millions of dollars. So just exactly what is this going to provide us with for our 55,000?
Through the chair, I would expect this would take probably 6 months. We'd have to get a tender process through to get a consultant on board. They would need to do the hydrology and do the work and then present the report back to us. So that would be my estimate.
Councillor Miller.
I wish to move an amendment, Your Worship. I wish to add, after the words, after $55,000, I would like to add the words subject to administration providing at the September 2024 council meeting options for what initiatives totalling $55,000 can be removed from the 2024-25 operational budget at the first quarter budget review. And I'll speak to why I'm asking for this amendment, Your Worship, if that's okay.
Through the chair, we've talked previously about all the discussions around reducing operational budget, and it's been expressed previously that the budget that was put to you was a zero-based budget. It was from the bottom up, and it was the second year that's been done, and that if you want services to be reduced, that becomes a decision for you as a group and not for the administration to keep coming back with alternatives for that. And this motion is asking us to do that, is asking us to come back and to tell you where those cuts should come. And I don't necessarily think that's appropriate given where we have or how we have established the budget. Now we put it forward.
May I speak to my amendment, Your Worship? I agree, we've just endorsed a budget that has a $4 million deficit, and now we are looking to increase our deficit with this item and the following one to the tune of $140,500. Our own annual budget and budget performance policy says on page 4, anything over $25,000 or greater, a budget update report is to be prepared, included in the agenda. In considering a request for a revision to its budget, Council will consider the impact any approval will have on the achievement of the targets for financial indicators established by Council. It will also consider the capacity to increase other revenue or reduce other expenditure, either of a corresponding operating or capital nature as appropriate, to offset the variation and the merit of doing so. I don't for a minute doubt, and I stress, I do not for a minute doubt this work needs to be done, and it's important, and it probably is a core function of Council to do exactly this sort of work. But we just endorsed a budget. with our community. We've known in July we have 11 recommendations that we're going to be considering in September and October that will probably take us quite close to $250,000 if this is an indication of what those reports and scoping studies will cost. We've known for a long time that there would be some budget implications to address what happened in Middleton. We had a briefing, and I know another council member and myself both asked, what provision is there in our long-term financial plan and in our annual business plan and budget for exactly this? And there was none. So I question how we can just within 2 months of endorsing our budget, come to council and say, I know this is for us to consider, but I can't support this unless I see at a budget review. We don't know our financial result from last year. We don't know what the first quarter budget review, it's kind of like just a bit of a check-in, and it tells us that a first quarter budget review would help us identify what, if we've actually got scope in our business plan to do this. So as I can't, and I'm asking for this amendment because we need to be disciplined in how we go forward this year. We are in year 1 of a 5-year plan to return to surplus, and we need to do that in a responsible way. And I can't support adding $55,000 to our operating budget without knowing what we could take out. So between now and September, we can bring forward motions on notice of what to take out of the operating budget that comes to $55,000, which is why I'm asking for a month's grace before we approve this increase to the budget so that we can consider what we can take out to accommodate this $55,000. And I'll be asking for the same thing at the next item because clearly they are contingent on each other. So that's why I'm asking for this amendment that I hope will be seconded to buy us time to actually give consideration to what we can take out, because we're sitting on a $4 million deficit and this is just only going to add to it in our operating budget. And I stress again that I am not for a minute saying that this is not a worthy project, because that's not, whether it was Middleton or anything, the subject matter doesn't matter for me when it comes to this kind of, this is a process where we need to identify if we're going to put something in, we need to take something out. Thank you.
Before we go for a second, and just to clarify, the motion as it is, or the amendment, it's up to the mover to identify where the savings are coming from. That's what Alan's tried to explain to you, but you haven't really listened. It's up to you to say you want to do this, and you want X whatever it is removed from the operational budget to cover it. That's your response. That's what's in the budget. That was what was put in.
Now I'm asking for a month so that I can do exactly that, bring forward a motion on notice that September to take things out.
But you're asking for administration to provide it. It's up to you to provide, to tell them. That's what I'm saying. You want to take the administration part out?
We don't have oversight, Your Worship, of the operational budget.
I don't want to argue about it. I just want to know, you want it in or out? Do you want the administration, do you want to tell administration to provide it, or do you want to tell...
I'm asking administration to provide options.
Right, you've spoken and you've said it. Is there a seconder? Seconder? No, so that will lapse through want of a seconder. So we go back to the original recommendation, which we've got moved. Is there any further discussion on the original recommendation? Councillor Scott.
Your Worship and fellow councillors, this is a very complex situation. That is, and I include the next motion in part of my discussion because the volumes of water that were encountered on that day remind me of what happens up in the pastoral country in the north, where there's enormous volumes of water go down what we call floodways and across roads that are made particularly to absorb water and traffic the water on. I've given this a considerable amount of thought, and how we're going to handle that in the future and make provision for handling that is, I believe, in itself is a huge challenge. And while I appreciate that all that Councillor Miller has said, but I think we have to get a grip of this problem and at least work out, it's going to cost millions to fix. Whichever way you look at it, it's going to cost millions to fix. It's no sort of a lick and a promise with a coat of paint on this one. And I think the sooner we know what the length and breadth of mitigating this in the future, the better it'll be for our Middleton residents, the better it'll be for our council, and for all concerned. And we can then look at how we're going to fund the thing, who's going to fund. I see we're going to have to get a lot of external funding to do this. I'm afraid, yes, we've got debt. We're in a business, and businesses have debt and they have surpluses and they ebb and flow. And I think this is urgent enough for us to make provision, whatever it takes, to get this detail for this motion and the one that will follow. And to save me talking twice, I want to include the two because they're interlinked. But it's a very unique thing that town is at the bottom end of about 1,000 acres of catchment at 22,000 gallons an inch for every acre. And there were 4 inches of rain that night, or within 10 points of 4 inches. So the volumes are immense. And plus you've got the water high velocity coming out of the hills with a great surge. So we've got all sorts of problems there. And my goodness, how you transport that sort of water away and down a place like Mill Terrace, my goodness, you want to have a fair few brandies to work that one out, I can tell you, if you're trying to work it out yourself. So I'm suggesting that we go ahead, much as it hurts, get this study done by experts, and then we'll know exactly where we stand. And more importantly, the Middleton people, the residents that have suffered, will have some understanding of just how the problem in front of how we're going to solve it, because it is quite a major engineering problem.
Any further discussion? Councillor Gardner.
I think this is a difficult issue. I am well aware of the damage, psychological damage, to members of Middleton who experienced the flood. I am personally aware of the devastation that Mill House experienced on that day and night. I don't think we can do anything else but go ahead and find the money, irrespective of the fact that we are carrying a major burden financially. I think we have to go ahead.
Any further discussion? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. So we go to 8.8, which is again the Middleton floods update to 10 Flagstaff Hill Road stormwater, and there's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Move Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you.
Seconder, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? Councillor Oliver.
I'm having difficulty understanding, and I'd like to ask why these amounts weren't included in the budget, given that it's only August now and the budget's only just been done, and this issue happened a long time ago, and we've done a lot of work on it, so thank you.
Yep, through the chair. So the report you received was 1 meeting ago. That report was the first report that had been brought back to this council to discuss in great length and detail about that event, and then what recommendations we felt, I think there was 12 of them all up, that we felt were appropriate, and you also endorsed those recommendations. They came well after the budget was considered. So the budget itself was communicated back in March to the community. So in terms of its endorsement, it was well outside the point at which we could have anticipated it being needed to be put in there.
Councillor Miller.
I wish to move an amendment, Your Worship. And I've just emailed it through because this is longer than the other one. So I wish to move an amendment that we, given the development of stormwater mitigation concepts at this location along Flagstaff Hill Road, including stormwater coming from and crossing Airport Road, Middleton, is reliant on the development of stormwater improvements on Mill Terrace, which would receive the flows from this upstream catchment and system. And both initiatives are item 8.7 and 8.8 at $140,500 to our 2024-25 operating deficit that is currently over $4 million, and to avoid, if possible, increasing that deficit, that this item be deferred until the September 2024 council meeting, so that council members have options to identify initiatives totalling $85,000 and as per what was printed.
So can we just clarify, are you moving an amendment, or are you moving a formal motion that it be adjourned?
No, I'm moving an amendment.
But you said you wanted it deferred. So
Well, deferral's not a formal motion.
there's no such thing as a deferral, you're right. So to defer it, but you have to, where are we deferring it till?
Until the September meeting, so that council members have the opportunity to bring forward motions on notice to reduce the operating budget in the equivalent value, because I was just told that administration won't do that. And on Friday, I asked for a list of operational initiatives so that I could consider exactly what the acting CEO has just asked me to do. But I don't have that information. I don't have oversight of the operating initiatives in the operating budget.
So is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Oliver.
May I speak to my amendment, Your Worship?
You've just spoken.
Oh.
Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? Do you want your right of reply, or you? No? So I'll put the amendment to you. All those in favour? Against? That's lost. So we go back to the original recommendation that's moved Councillor Scott, seconded Councillor Gardner. Councillor Oliver's spoken to it. Is there any further discussion on that? Councillor Thornton.
A note before, it was stated that the new contractors will possibly do their own hydrologist report. Why can't they use ours, and if they could, would it save us money?
Sorry, Councillor Thornton, can you repeat that? I didn't hear it.
It's red. The hydrologist report, you stated that they may do their own, this new consultant for each item we're doing. Why can't they use ours that we've already done for the Middleton event?
So the original hydrologist report that was undertaken was for a different catchment. So the catchment for Middleton that report looked at is very much like a funnel. So this is outside of that catchment.
Any further discussion or questions? Councillor Scott, do you wish to use your right of reply?
Just very briefly, I think it goes beyond what I said earlier. I think we have a real responsibility to do this work. And I think, painful as it is, it has to be done. because it's a very serious situation, and it's a very involved situation. It will need potentially major work up on Flagstaff Hill Road as well to divert some of the water, and then you've got to be careful where you're diverting it into private property and that sort of thing. So I can't overemphasise the importance and the need for us to be doing this. Thank you.
Close the discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Just for clarification, I'll just let you know that as a resolution of council, we have written to the Landscape Board, and I have brought it up at a board meeting to look at what they can do as far as helping with the situation at Middleton, as far as the creek and where the water's come from and things like that. So there's another avenue that we're looking at. 8.9 is the Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority business plan for 2024-27, the long-term financial plan and draft budget 2024-25. Sorry, just 1 second. Councillor Livingston.
Sorry, can I please declare a material conflict of interest due to my employment, and I will leave the chamber.
Okay. Thank you. We got 8.9, which, as I said, is the Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority Business Plan 2024-27 and the Long-Term Financial Plan and Draft Budget 2024-25, and there's a recommendation there before you. Is there a mover? Councillor Gardner. Seconder? Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 10 is the Chief Executive Officer's report, and no, it's not. Sorry, let's start again. 8.10 is the Chief Executive Officer's report, and the recommendation that that report for July be received. Move, Councillor Livingston. Seconder, Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion or questions relating to that report? Councillor Miller.
I have two questions. Are there any emerging issues in our capital works program or any opportunities in the operating budget that we could perhaps be assisted with identifying to reach 140,000? And that's my first question.
Through the Chair, the capital works program will be coming back to you with the quarterly review, which will be in October. At this stage, I would say no to the first part of that in terms of capital works. That's a capital expenditure as it relates to, or not operational. And the second part of that question, which is around operational expenditure, no, I can't give you any opportunities at this time. I would have to take that on notice.
And my other question is, given the community loans policy says we'll only loan combined total to 500,000, do we have any other community loans in operation at the moment, or that could potentially be drawn down on at any point in time?
I think these are questions without notice. They're not part of the Chief Executive's report. I mean, yeah. So, Andrew, thank you.
Through you, Your Worship. There is only one other community loan that I am currently aware of. And I cannot quite recall at the present moment who that is with.
Is there any further discussion on the Chief Executive Officer's report? Councillor Gardner.
I just want to say a big thank you to Alan. It's a huge job to take over. and the people like Jonathan, who's had to step up. We really appreciate the fact that you have been willing to take on the burden of being acting CEO. So thanks.
He's actually doing an extremely good job, and I think he's enjoying it. Is there any further discussion? I certainly don't see him in tears or pulling his hair out, so it's good. So I'll put the report to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 9 is Section 41 Committees and Advisory Panels, Minutes and Reports. 9.1 is the Section 41 Audit and Risk Committee Minutes of the 9th of August 2024, and there's a recommendation that those minutes be noted and received. Moved, Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion relating to those minutes? Councillor Miller.
I'm just interested, Your Worship, if the Audit and Risk Committee had any comments around the recommending 8.2% and going endorsing 7.9, if they had any feedback on that.
Through the Chair, no, they simply took that information and they were grateful to have received it in terms of closing out their discussions.
Any further discussion on that? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.2 is the Section 41 Heritage Advisory Committee Minutes of the 11th of July 2024, and there's a recommendation that they receive and note those minutes. Moved, Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion relating to those minutes, Councillor Maidment?
Just briefly, congratulate the staff with the success in obtaining a $75,000 grant to assist with the local Heritage Code amendment. That should be noted, and thank them for their efforts.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
Yes, I must admit I found the history, the work that had been done on the history of the names, place names, was extremely interesting and well worth reading. And congratulations to whoever did all that research, because it was quite enlightening and adds some meaning to the names that you get better understanding when you.
I think you're on the next report, Councillor Scott.
Beg pardon?
I think you're on 9.3, not 9.2.
Am I? Oh, sorry. What am I? So, I'm on 9.2, Heritage Advisory. Oh, never mind. Anyway, that's.
Well, we do mind because we're going to vote on something. We want to know what you're voting on. Is there any further discussion on 9.2? If not, I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.3 is the report from the Section 41 Heritage Advisory Committee on the pre-approval of road names list, and there's a recommendation of the committee and administration. We should move them all together, both together. Is there a mover for that, Councillor Oliver? Seconder, Councillor Gardner. Is there any discussion relating to that report? No, we've already had it. That's right. So I'll put the recommendations. This is one of the committee and administration. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.4 is the Section 41 Cemeteries Advisory Committee Minutes of the 4th of July 2024. And it's a recommendation that we receive and note those minutes. Moved, Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Gardner. Any questions or notes, comments in relation to those minutes? If not, we'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.5 is the report from the Section 41 Cemeteries Advisory Committee, new cremation interment options for Langhorne Creek and Mount Compass Cemetery. There's the recommendation of the committee and administration. We move both. Is there a council amendment? Second, you want to speak to it? Yeah.
Briefly, this is why the Cemeteries Committee was formed, to identify shortcomings in our cemeteries. There's quite a few of them actually. You've seen the list of them, and this is one thing that came out of the meeting which is much needed, because we need some opportunities to inter cremated remains at both Langhorne Creek and Mount Compass, because the current situation is they're full. So I hope you would endorse this.
So do we have a seconder, Councillor Miller? Any discussion? No, so we'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Let's start again. Let's all do it together, please. All those in favour? God. Against? It's carried unanimously. Really, 9.6 is the report from the Section 41 Cemeteries Advisory Committee, the future direction for cemetery management, and there's a recommendation of the committee and administration. Put that to you. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Miller. Is there any discussion, Councillor? You should have spoken. Hang on, wait for maybe. Is there any discussion? No, so Councillor Maidment, you can close it.
Yeah, happy to close it out. Council cemeteries do run at a small profit, and they're just looking at if we're going to put more resources into our cemeteries, what do we need to increase in terms of recouping costs? So, and this is just asking that the administration look at that. So they still want to run at a profit, and they still want to be able to, unfortunately, cemeteries will expand over time. We don't necessarily appreciate that, but yeah, so hopefully you'll endorse this one as well.
That closes the discussion, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.7 is a report from the Section 41 Ratalang, Basham Beach and Horseshoe Bay Advisory Committee, the appointment of a trustee, and there is a recommendation of the committee and administration. This one is okay or not? Alan will talk to this.
Through the chair, I need to apologise. The committee that ran a couple of weeks ago was not a quorum. None of us in the room picked that up as we ran through the meeting, and so it was only after the fact that that was brought to our attention, which we appreciated. But it does mean that it's not actually a resolution of the committee. However, the trustee is council's trustee, not the committee's trustee. So council has every opportunity and right to appoint that trustee without the resolution of that committee.
Now, so we've amended the recommendations. So is there a mover for that? Councillor Scott. Second to Councillor Maidment. Is there any? Councillor Miller.
I just have a question, Your Worship. So we're appointing a position to the trustee, not a person, is that correct? Because I'm just curious, is this the Acting General Manager of Infrastructure? I don't mean to be pernickety, but I'm just trying to understand if we're appointing a position as trustee or a person.
Yep, through the chair, we're appointing the position in order that as we move forward, we can administer the trust fund through that position.
Any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Then we go to 9.8.
Point of order, I didn't vote in the affirmative, Your Worship.
Sorry, 9.8 is the Section 41 South Australian Wooden Boat Festival Committee minutes of the 22nd of July 2024. There's a recommendation that we receive and note those minutes. Moved Councillor Oliver.
Mayor, could I please just note I should be recorded as an apology at that meeting.
Right.
Thank you.
We can change that. Is there a seconder? Councillor Livingston. Is there any discussion relating to those minutes? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I have a question. And I did put this in email, but I haven't had a reply. I just wondered when this committee, or does this committee only exist to run the festival? Or do they also have some oversight of the wooden boat strategy? And I also, that's what I'm just curious about, because the website talks about the establishment says that they are assisting with the delivery of the wooden boat strategy, but the purpose or the role of the committee is just about the festival, and then on the website it doesn't talk about the wooden boat strategy. So I'm just curious as to whether this committee just exists to do the wooden boat festival, or it has some other, or when they actually last considered the wooden boat strategy, if that's what they are there for. If we could have some clarification, please.
Through the chair, the wooden boat strategy includes the Wooden Boat Festival, so it's an integral part of the strategy. So the committee is driving the festival in accordance with the strategy. So there is a link to the strategy.
Thanks, Lisa. Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? No, it's carried unanimously. Item 10 is council members' reports. 10.1 is presiding members' report, which is mine for July, and there's a recommendation that we receive that report. Move, Councillor Maidment. Yep.
You're conducting your citizenship ceremonies in Centenary Hall, Goolwa. Is there any, if ever the Strathalbyn Town Hall gets completed, is there any thought to switching it over and have at least one at Strathalbyn at some time in the future?
I think if there was a substantial number of conferees that were from Strathalbyn or the surrounding area, it would be, we could, but we wouldn't bring everybody, say, from down here all the way up there if there was nobody from up there. You know what I mean? But it's a nice idea if we can see where the people live when the names come up. Yeah. Any other? There's a seconder. Councillor Oliver. Any other discussion or questions? No. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Oh. We haven't got election members' reports. There were none. Council, so the 10.2, which I don't have here, which is the council members' activity reports. There were, as far as I know, there were no written ones. Is there any verbal, Councillor Scott, and its council activity?
I'd just like to draw Council's attention to the fact that at the very top corner of our ward, a young fellow by the name of Angus Dawson lives, and he was in the men's 8 rowing team that went to the Olympic Games. And I would suggest that we send, he lives at Dingla Badingla, came out a bit roughly, and I'm suggesting that council send him a letter of congratulations on his performance. Unfortunately, I didn't see the race, but it's highly competitive, and has done a huge amount of work in training leading up to it. And anyone that makes the Olympic Games, I think, is worthy of applause. So, could I suggest that?
I've got your report. We'll put that as part of what we're going to move and seconded when we get the rest of the reports.
Thank you very much.
So, has anybody else got anything? Councillor Livingston.
And apologies for not saying this last meeting. I just wanted to note that Councillor Scott and I attended the national conference for the Murray-Darling Association in Tamworth, and I found it extremely valuable, and especially seeing what the northern areas of the basin are doing in relation to wastewater management and their investment into infrastructure. It's quite significant, and I look forward to seeing what we can do in the future.
Any further? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I would just like to congratulate every community group and person and the STA involved in the Antiques Fair that was held in Strathalbyn over the weekend. If anybody went to Strathalbyn, it seemed like all roads in the state led to Strathalbyn on the weekend, and it's an incredible event that they put on, and it's a wonderful event for our town. And I know Councillor Maidment had quite a bit to do with that, so I just want to thank every single person that was involved. It was incredible, and any support that was given to them.
Anything else? Any more? So we've got those reports, so we accept those reports, and of course taking into account Councillor Scott's request for a letter. So is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. Seconded Councillor Nicholson. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So item 11 is confidential items, so we just need to...
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.